Hey everyone, it's Sean with Carolina Code School, and joining us this week is Stephanie Cushing. Hey, what's up, Bestie?
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. I've been looking forward to this. I think everybody in the Carolina Code School has been looking forward to this. We're going to do our best to stay on topic and on
Yep.
track, and it's not going to be easy because
Nope.
we tried to do this in the same room, and that was just going to be a disaster. So,
Yep.
so we're somewhat separated. But why don't we start off? We'll start off like a normal discussion, and why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and how you found yourself as a developer?
Yeah. I'm Stephanie Cushing. I am currently working at MedProcure as a software developer. We do work in the medical space we have various applications that we do. Prior to that, I was doing more front end development work. This job, I'm kind of more full stack. So that's been really cool and fun. Before that, I worked in college athletics and just, I think the pandemic gave everybody a lot of time to think about what's important to them and what they wanted out of a career, out of life. And, I took a lot of time during that to think about, what does the rest of my life look like and what do I want it to look like and how do I want to leave my mark in the world? And am I being challenged in a way that's going to help me grow as a person and grow in my career? And, I had thought about tech a long time ago, just wasn't in a place or brave enough at the time to kind of take the leap and felt like I was in a good place. I had support from my family, from my significant other. And so it was just kind of like time. I found Carolina Code School and I just applied, took the leap, and it was the best decision. It was crazy. It was a whirlwind, but I don't regret it. I would not change anything about my experience with it for sure.
And to lay out some background for folks that don't know, when you say you were in college athletics, you were like in college athletics. You were coaching collegiate teams. You were a collegiate athlete. It
Yeah.
wasn't just like, oh yeah, I was kind of just working for the sports department somewhere. Like,
Yeah. So I went to Furman for undergrad. I played college softball at Furman. Thought I wanted to like be on ESPN and work college athletics. This is so cool. This is going to be great. Watching sports for work is great. And I did internships and I went to grad school and I got my master's in sport administration and I was on this track and I started working like at the conference level and realizing like this is so many hours that you're putting in and weekends and nights and travel, and it just really became more of a burden than something that was fun. So I kind of broke off. I did some personal training. I worked at a local gym with some of my friends that you know own a gym from Furman, and then I transitioned into working for the city of Greenville doing special events, and that was all well and good. I thought I wanted to go back into college athletic. I mean, I bounced around for sure. And, as it was a good thing and a bad thing. Like the good thing being I met so many people, which has helped me in going forward into tech because I met people that at the time were in the tech space or knew somebody that knew somebody in tech, and it built those bridges and you know a little like kindness and a little just getting to know people. And I feel like like being from the north, we kind of talk to everybody, and you kind of I don't know, everyone's like your friend because I guess because you grow up
yeah,
around
yeah,
people that are like you're kind of related to. Like
right.
your cousin lives down the street and your second cousin knows your second cousin and all this stuff. So but when I was at Furman, I went back to Furman to work, and I was working. I basically was at every home game that the university had, and it was a lot. And I was doing a lot of stuff. And while I loved my boss there, and I loved a lot of the people that I worked with, I wasn't making the impact there that I had set out to make. As far as kind of leaving the athletics department better than I had found it, there's a lot of you know, bureaucracy and there's a lot of politics. And that just really wasn't something that I felt like I probably should have known, but I didn't. And you just don't know what you don't know until you get there and you do it. And, I was comfortable. I knew how to do my job. I knew the coach. There were some coaches that were still there from when I was a student athlete there. So, you know, I wanted more. I wanted more from myself. I wanted more from my career. And so I knew I had to make a change.
And so, how did that that decision? So again, you're softball, you're coaching, you're dealing with people, like actual
Yeah.
people in the real
Yeah.
world, and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to type a lot, and I'm going to work in ones and zeros land. So how did
Yep.
you find yourself on the tech path, and then more specifically, what led you into Carolina Code School?
So working at Furman, like I said, I talked to everybody. So I had students that worked for me. I was working in the fitness center. I was talking to the kids and befriended a few of them. Furman kids are a different, different breed of kid. But, I met a kid
It's
that after I left, went into a different department, I kind of kept in touch with her. And I'm telling her, like, I think I'm going to try and switch jobs. I'm not super happy. And she's like, oh, my aunt works in tech. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Tell me more. What does she do? And she was like, oh, well, I'll find out for you. And she comes back and she's like, yeah, my aunt has worked, she was the CTO at Capital One for a long time. She's been working in tech like 25 years. And I was like, sorry, what? Like
yeah,
first,
yeah, that's
first working in tech for that long at that level and being a woman, like,
yeah,
I need to talk to this person. Like she was like, oh yeah, talk to my aunt. She's more than happy to talk to you. So I had a really awesome conversation with this girl's aunt. The woman's name is Julie Elberfeld. She's actually now the CEO of Women Who Code.
oh
So
nice,
she is awesome. She was so influential for me to hear, her journey in tech and hear about just this kind of overall history of women in tech and the way that you can make a difference and the way that you can inspire more people and how we need to, diversity is, I don't think personally is ever a bad thing. So
yeah.
being a woman in a male dominated space was something that I was ready to handle because sports is a male dominated space and I took that head on. So I'm going to take this head on too. And so after talking to her, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm going for it. And I had a little hesitation. My better half was like, you need to do this. Like, just kind of before me, she was like, you need to do this. And I was like, okay. I had the support of my parents. I had the support of my better half and friends. And I was like, I'll see you guys in 12 weeks. Like, I'm going to have to say no to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to stay local to Greenville. And so in talking to Julie, she was like, if you want to stay local, I would look for a local code school.
Mhm.
And that's when I just kind of went on Google and Googled local. I knew that there had been one previously in the area and that I knew that it had closed down. So I didn't know if there was anything that was still here to look at. And I found Carolina Code School and I applied and I came and did the interview and just said, all right, let's do this.
So you and I share this, and I'm not sure if it's a Pittsburgh thing or a college athlete thing or a combination of the two. But when we get into something, we are like, we're all in, right? Like jump right into the deep end. And so you've not only then came to code school, finished code school, got a job as a developer, but this at the last Carolina Code Conference, which I forget what time of year it was, but it was
Yeah.
I think summer of 2023. You were up there and you were giving a talk. So you're still early in your career. You've been a developer for you're on your third year, second year,
I'm on my
and
third year, I think.
third year,
Um, no.
and there's opportunity to come up and talk about being a
Yeah.
developer and being a junior developer, and you're like, yep, I got a story to tell. And so talk a little bit about that experience and basically being that person that went all in and is happy to kind of stand in front and talk to people.
Yeah. And I think, being an athlete, you go 100% of whatever you have that day. Like that is just kind of drilled into you at a really young age. Like you give 100% of whatever is in the tank that day. And that's how you take things on. The funny part though, is that coming into code school, I had to deal with a lot of being afraid to fail because, as an athlete, you're expected to do things 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 times and do it right and do it perfect every single time. And tech does not work like that. Coding does not work like
Yeah,
that. Your code,
not at
like
all.
that is not the point. The point is to fail. And so that was kind of part of the personal growth that I knew I needed to experience because I needed to learn to fail and I needed to learn to accept it. And I needed to learn to just take it as a learning opportunity and not as something that was something bad on me or something against my what I was worth. The failure is how we learn. I spend my entire day chasing my errors and chasing my failures, and that's just how it is. I mean, it truly is. And so it took a lot for me in code school to realize that this is okay. And you're going to be okay doing this. And I also kind of am of the belief that sharing our stories is important, because I think that just in general in the world, like knowing that we're not alone is huge. When we know that we're not alone, we feel a little bit better. Not in a sense of like, oh, now we have to compare our experiences, but we can find that common thread that holds us all together as people and as humans and as just people who want to do better. And so I jumped at the opportunity to speak at the Carolina Code Conference. I gave a talk. I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. If everybody hasn't watched it, you need to.
Uh,
It's a
Me too.
fantastic show.
Absolutely.
It's a
100%.
fantastic show. It combined a lot of things that I love: sports and empathy and
Yeah.
just comedy and just so many things.
Yeah.
So I
Dad
took
jokes.
dad jokes. I took a piece. I took a piece out of that, and I kind of said, being a junior developer is hard, and a lot of folks that are senior developers might forget what it's like to be a junior developer, and that's it's fine. You get in your groove of life and you just kind of go on, and you get in your groove and you're comfortable. But I think it's important that we look to the next kind of generation or next kind of wave of folks that are getting into tech, and how can we understand each other's experiences from either side. As a senior developer, like I want to know what you've been through. I want to know what you know, but I also want to know that you're invested in me and knowing me as a person, and knowing, especially being a code school graduate, I have a whole life before I got here, and I have a lot of
Yeah.
experiences, and I've done a lot of things that have shaped who I am and how I approach this. And so if we can understand each other on that level and understand where the other person is coming from, then we're going to have a better chance to succeed and work together in a way that is meaningful. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed, clearly I love talking. I think they said we have 30 minutes for this, but I feel like you and I could talk for a long time.
This could be the 8-hour podcast.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I jumped at the opportunity to do it. I was super nervous. Don't get me wrong. I was really nervous, but I got a lot of great feedback from it, and I loved being able to do it.
And you are the consummate coach. Like, it is so obvious that you have that coaching mindset, right? Like
I do.
it's one of the things. When we first met, we actually met. We were both speaking at was it Wade Hampton High School?
That's
Yeah,
Wade
it was Wade
Hampton High
Hampton High
School.
School.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were there to talk to a computer science class and tell people about what it's like to be a developer, both from the me being the old man that's been doing it forever standpoint, and you being the person that's new to the field. But
Yeah.
even then, immediately I could tell, like, you were new to the industry, but you also were really excited to share about being in the industry and to share that story and to really coach other people up and say,
Yeah.
hey, this is what's awesome about this.
Yeah. And just be
And
supportive. I mean, it's hard to do something different. Change is hard. Change, my mom actually jokes with me that, like, I have been a kid, like as a kid, I hated change. I just did not like it, but I've experienced so much change in my life that you come to just kind of accept that you're going to be uncomfortable. I mean, the whole point of growing is to be uncomfortable. And so
yes,
if you can find that discomfort and kind of live in there and understand that this is normal. And how do you know it's normal? Because you talk to other people that tell you what you're feeling is totally normal right now. Like, you're going through it. I get it. I've been there. And that's what helps them, get to the next day and put the one foot in front of the other, and continue to do it. And yeah, I do relate a lot of things. I do approach a lot of things with the mindset of an athlete, with the mindset of a coach, because it's so ingrained in me. And whether it was a good experience or a bad experience that I had, it taught me something, right? So at the end of the day, like,
yeah,
I can sit here and be upset and frustrated with the things that happened to me or how I was treated when I was an athlete or whatever, or how someone, but you know what? Like, it taught me something. It taught me how to be gritty. It taught me how to be disciplined. It taught me all these things that I've carried over now into my tech career. And so those are the stories that I hope that folks that are new to tech or are thinking about going into tech, like, those experiences that you have are important and they matter. And we also need folks that are already in and established in the industry to understand that these people have these experiences, and there's a place for them, and there's a place for them to thrive. You just have to get there. You have to get to know somebody. You have to show that empathy. You have to show that care and kindness and concern. And that's kind of where the magic happens.
Oh yeah, 100%. This is, you've heard me tell this story before, but I've been in tech. I came out of the womb and somehow got put in front of a computer, and and we've had this discussion. But the most important lesson I've learned about being a developer actually came from coaching cheerleading, which is completely not related. So bringing in backgrounds like yourself, the experiences that you have, it's important. Like, you provide a great example for people bringing in, to be a little cliche, bringing in their whole self. Like, you had a whole life, a whole career before you shifted into this,
Yeah.
but now you're able to take the lessons that you learned that in a bubble felt like these are just softball lessons, but they're not. They're lessons that
Hmm.
now help inform your
Yeah.
work as a developer.
Yeah. And I think there's too, there's a stereotype of like, oh, you're just going to sit in a room and code. Like, I'm sure that there are some jobs like that, but in the couple of jobs that I've had, and even in code school, like, you have to work on a team. You have to know how to communicate with your peers and communicate with your colleagues and communicate with clients sometimes. I mean, they don't really like let the developers talk to the clients very often. Somehow in my current role, I have been able to interact with
Yeah.
clients, which I'm still, I'm learning to be more diplomatic, but you you learn. You learn as
I
you
just,
go. I could be
yeah,
very straightforward. Like I
yeah,
am from the
yeah,
north. I am tried and true a Yankee. I'm from Pittsburgh. Like, I'm going to tell you exactly like it is. And
yeah,
but having those, like, being on a team with, I had a mentor when I first got into my first job, and I love Jonathan. Jonathan is my guy. He's great. I'll always take the opportunity to, like, just shout out how I think I asked him, I was like, so, like, how old are you? And he was like, I'm 25. And I was like, cool, I'm 35. That's awesome. But, this kid, like, I call him a kid, but he's an adult,
yeah,
but
yeah,
he's a man. Um,
yeah.
he got out of his comfort zone and chose to become a mentor and mentor me. And I don't know how he drew the short straw getting me, but he really he was so huge in my growth after code school. And I think that was the other part of my talk, is that I have had interactions. My other buddy George, like, I will always shout out George too, because that guy,
Oh yeah,
they challenge me all the time. And when even now, we don't work together anymore, but we still talk code. We got together last night, and some of the conversation just happens to go to code. I learned so much just sitting around having a beer last night. And so the more we can, I want to be that person when it's my time to come and to have somebody and be like, yo, you can do this, and I'm going to challenge you. But it's because I know that you can do it, and I see the potential in you. And I feel like both Jonathan and George, and even Brandon, who is another developer on my team, like, those guys, I got really lucky. I got really lucky in my first job out of code school because I had that team. But if I didn't know how to be on a team and I didn't know how to talk to those guys, I probably wouldn't have gotten as much out of them as I did.
yeah,
But I took an interest in Jonathan's life. Hey, like, what's your story? Where do you come from? Like, tell me about yourself. I want to know who. I kind of want to know, A, who I'm dealing with here, but B, like, it's going to make us work better together, because if you're able and comfortable to tell me, like, hey, I'm not really having a great day today, then I know, like, hey, no worries, man. Like, is there anything I can do? And maybe I'm not going to ask him as many questions, or I'm going to understand if he gets a little short with me. Like, hey, he's having a bad day. Like, it happens, man.
yeah. And you and George both have come in, and George will come in regularly, even now
Yeah.
with current students.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite days in the last cohort, we had you and George and Isaac and Alec, and it was just a bunch of alumni, and it turned class into a hackathon, and it was
Yeah.
just great to have y'all in the
Yeah.
room. And it was, I mean, then the stuff that everybody was doing was all, I think George was up front doing a React Native project and
Yep.
just put it up on the big screen for everybody to see. So,
Yeah.
speak a little bit about your experience both as a student. You talked about the anxiety and stuff
Hmm.
that comes with that, but
Hmm.
that transition from student now to alumni and now coming back. How has that part of your journey, like the student specific parts of your journey, how has that grown? And because I feel like even after you graduate, you're never not a student anymore, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think I get where you're going. I mean, again, everybody has something to teach you in general. Like this is like
Yeah.
I'm being your life hype girl right now. Like everybody has something
Right.
to teach you, good or bad, right? Like it might not look great, it
Hmm.
could look awesome. And so code school helps you learn differently and kind of learn how to ask and think differently about what you're doing, and how to approach problem solving in a way that's a little different than you're probably used to. And so taking that knowledge forward and understanding how to ask questions and, you know, what am I really trying? What is the underlying problem and how do I get there? And just being able to be coachable. Again, this goes back to being an athlete. Like be
Yeah.
coachable, be teachable. Like that is the most important thing. You have to be a sponge. Like the good thing about tech and the bad thing about tech is that you're never going to know everything.
No,
There's always something to learn.
never.
It's changing all the time. I mean, there's things that just have changed from my cohort to the next cohort, like versions of software and packages and all these things, they change. And so in order to keep up with it, you have to be constantly looking for opportunities to learn and looking to people who know more than you do. I mean, and the biggest thing that is important that I recommend to everybody is you have to check your ego. Because if you don't check your ego, you're not going to be great on the team because you're going to think you know everything and nobody, that was cool. No
Hey,
one's
look at
going
that.
to know. I know. No one's going to, you know, no one's going to want to work with you. But everybody has something to teach you. And it's just a matter of asking, like, hey, you might not have time right now. Hey, whenever you get a second, I'd really like to learn what you're doing, or just stopping somebody. We were talking last night, they were talking about microservices. And I was like, hey, wait, stop. Can you go back and explain that to me? Like, I didn't quite understand how you said it that time. Can you kind of phrase it
Hmm.
differently or give me a different analogy so I can understand it? And anyone who is like, in my opinion, anyone who is a good person and a good developer is going to want to be like, yeah, you can totally rewind it. But the kindness and like, it works both ways. Like, you have to be curious and kind, and they're going to give that back to you. And then also, sometimes you, as someone who doesn't necessarily know as much, you might find a solution that's a lot more simple to this complex problem, and they're trying to do all these things to overcomplicate it. But at the end of the day, you find a simple solution, and so that's where the learning happens. I would do things, and George and Jonathan would let me run with it, and then we'd go back and look at it, and I'd be like, I don't think this is probably the most efficient way to do it. And they'd look at me and say, does it work? It works. And then I'd say, well, how would you do it? How would you approach this? But they
Hmm.
let me struggle through it, figure it out myself, and then go back and we talk about, like, yeah, there's multiple ways to do this. The way you do it, the way you did it isn't wrong. Here are maybe some issues that you might have down the road with this piece of code, or, when you have time, I would probably go back and look to refactor this. But there's just always, you just have to be open-minded and willing to learn from other people, and then be somebody who's willing to teach other people, be somebody who's willing to support other people. And I think that now the transition from student into, developer and moving forward, like, again, I want to be somebody that mentors other people like I was mentored, because that was so huge for me. And to give it, not give it back, or not want to give it back, feels like a disservice to who I am as a person, feels like a disservice to the people who have helped me out. It feels like a disservice to tech in general and the growth and the diversification of this industry. Like, there's just so much that I feel like is so ingrained in me, and the things, like, this is my moral compass, like, these are my values and they're important to me, and I'm gonna follow them through till the end.
And to touch on something, it's that looking with fresh eyes, right? You get
Yeah.
someone like myself, or George and I have been doing this forever, and there are just
Yeah.
things that we will not see. We just won't
Yeah.
catch them. That someone like
Yeah.
yourself will come along and you'll see it, and you'll see it with fresh eyes, and
Mm-hmm.
it's and you said it. It's important that you also maintain that you're going to work with somebody else who's then going to show you something new as you move on the line.
For sure.
Another thing real quick that I want to touch on is
Mhm.
that you talked about is that there are multiple ways to do a task.
Mhm.
And I feel like coming out, like when you're being coached in sports, there's often like do it this way. Like you can
Mhm.
find like the perfect form or the
Mhm.
perfect this or the like there are things you can do where you have a perfect that you can strive for. And
Mhm.
code, there's rarely if ever a
Nope.
perfect solution. So talk about that sort
Yeah, again, I think the part of it that I can take away from the athletics part is the striving to be the best version of myself, or
of.
be the best
Mhm.
version, and or take into account that I am going to take this problem and I am going to just work this problem until I get the answer. And there was a lot of like having to learn to let go. Like you have to let go that right now your code is going to look like absolute trash. Sorry, like it is.
It's
And that's okay.
always
Does it
bad.
work? Does it work? Okay, it works. So then taking that less than perfect solution, and even taking that less than perfect solution, bringing in the athletics piece and going, okay, how can I make this better? How can I do this
Yep.
better the next time? Or how can I remember what I did so that next time I go to do this, I'll get to that answer quicker, or I'll find something or see a keyword that sparks something that's like, okay. So just always looking for those small tweaks, because you do that in softball. Like take your swing, you look at your swing and you're like, I could have done this a little bit better. I look at my code, I'm like, this is kind of hacky. It works right now, but I definitely want to go back and fix it. And then doing that. So I think that, getting over the fact that things are going to be perfect, because I'm so glad that I learned to leave that alone. That has been huge for me, not just in my career, but for me personally. So
Absolutely. As we wind down, what's next? What's next for you? You just
I
joined the team at MedProcure, um,
did.
so you're there, which we
Hmm.
affectionately call Carolina Code School East,
Yeah,
because you're working with a lot of grads over there.
it's
So
great.
what's your immediate future goals? What are you looking at down the line?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually in the process. David at MedProcure is amazing. He's such a great advocate for the tech community, for women in tech, for people of color. I love what he's doing at MedProcure, because right now it's hard to get a job as a junior. So if I'm a junior developer, like, and it's a great place to be, because David wants to give you the time to learn. Right now, I'm having to learn Java. I'm having to learn, I was doing React and JavaScript and TypeScript. Now I'm doing Java and Spring
Yeah.
and Spring Boot and SQL. But David is giving me the time and the space to learn these things, and the understanding that, hey, I know that I didn't hire you because I knew you were good at Java. I hired you because I know what kind of person you are, and I know that you're going to work really, really hard to learn this stuff, and you're going to get it, and you're going to pick it up quick. So right now, I'm just really focused on keeping like learning and building up those skills. Getting more involved in Women Who Code. There's an event. Christina Roberts just hit me up this morning about a panel for Women Who Code. That's something that I am super passionate about, is just diversifying the tech community, and bringing more women into tech and bringing more people of color, because and I will say this and I will die on this hill, but I really don't think we can call ourselves innovators if we don't have all the voices in the room. If we're not innovating
Hmm.
for everybody, we can't say we're innovating. It's just not, I'm sorry. I just don't think it's how that works. So right now, just digging it. Again, my better half, Brandy, is also a developer, so it's kind of fun to work at home with her, and we kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and it's been great, because I don't know. She's doing PHP in Laravel. I have no idea, and it's great to kind of to learn and just bounce ideas off each other. It's better than I thought it was going to be.
And she's also a former athlete, so now you've got that.
Yeah,
It's a whole house of athletes turned developers. So it's
we're rocking, man. I'm telling you.
awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much. We made it through without completely
Yeah,
cracking each other up multiple
I know.
times.
I know.
This might be the most like straight faced. Like I broke once. This might be the most straight faced conversation you and I have ever had.
Yeah, it's all
leading
after
up
we
to it.
get off of this, it's gonna come out. So just be
Oh yeah,
ready.
yeah, yeah,
Because we're in the
yeah.
other
We're
room
gonna
and I'm
be
gonna come in there and it's gonna come out.
yeah, yeah. You're just right down the hall. We're gonna be yelling out Pittsburghese down the hall to each other.
Yeah,
Hey Jens,
yeah,
what you doing down there? All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Before we just lose everybody with Pittsburghese, Stephanie, thank you so much for hopping on and
yeah,
sharing your story and for being a part of this community and all the contributions that you make.
yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate it so much.